Hello to all our listeners. This is another episode of the KashCast, an interview-focused podcast where I interview creatives from different backgrounds to get info about their life, passions, and hobbies. With me today, I have Gene Goldstein. Gene, welcome.
Yo, what's up? I think I already picked the mic. Off to a good start.
No worries. That's Audition's problem.
Yeah, you know what? That's right. That's why we have software. Yes. Happy to be on the show. I'm good. I have my hot tea in my black skull mug. Gotta stay on brand, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good actually. I want to say, well, recently, like on Friday, I'm pretty sure people already know in the audience, but like I'm a PA on KIF and I'm at Titmouse, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I honestly did not go in expecting this, but we're doing tours actually, and it was the first time I actually like explained like my job as like a PA, and you know, it's definitely surreal. And also, you know, I don't think a lot of people hear about what PAs do on the regular, but hey, it was like a nice thing. You know, I'm always glad to like help out, you know, wherever. And considering I had no prior prep, I'd like to think I nailed it, honestly.
I think you did. What did you What did you say? Give me the elevator pitch of what a PA does.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, a PA is someone who is actively taking notes, archiving, and just making sure that each phase of the animation pipeline is going up to snuff. Of course, at least on the show that I'm on, KIF, there are different people who are designated into different departments. I'm more of a miscellaneous type person.
Sure.
So there's just like certain duties I do that are like across. Like I could be doing storyboard conforms. That's more in the board revisions, stuff like that. But I could also help with pay stubs, which is just making sure that all of our designs that we ship to Korea are organized and they have the right version. You know, everything's on the Google Drive or whatever. Let's see. Also, general note taking is also a really big boon. I'm also
super
learning,
valuable too.
Yes, and I'm also learning having Google Sheets or Excel experience is a highly underrated but very vital skill that I'm finding.
Yes, 100%. Definitely. Yeah. Production's huge, and I mean, obviously, I know what a PA does, but I think that, I think people don't know, and as somebody who is now running a studio, it is crucial. And I think Jellybox, my studio, would collapse without Sean's help, Sean Aitchison.
Right.
So yes. Shout out to all the production people. I'm glad that there's also more of a push for unionization too. I think that's an important
absolutely
step that needs to happen.
Very happy that I think, of course, someone like a listener will probably correct me, but I think that Titmouse New York was like the first like non-LA studio to unionize. So it's pretty big, so I'm definitely happy to be here.
Yes, definitely.
All right, and honestly, perfect segue first off. So for anyone who's uninitiated, what is Jellybox and what have been your experiences running your own animation studio?
What is Jellybox? So Jellybox is an indie animation studio that I started in July of 2023. As often these things happen after a layoff or some other career tragedy. It's like, well, guess I'm doing this now. And that's exactly what happened. I was working in mobile games for a couple of years. It was a great job. Learned a lot. I started in mobile games back in like 2012 or something like that. And then I made my way into TV animation where I wanted to be and did that for a while. And then, you know, everything started kind of going to shit. So I was lucky to have this job. And I was a senior manager. So I was leading a team of animators, and it was both in 2D and CG. And it was great. It was a lot of just people managing and project managing. And I really enjoy that work. And And I think a lot of people have this sort of dream of having a studio, but it's incredibly hard if you
I can imagine.
if you, especially if you have no foundation to build it on top of, and so like it felt like the right move for me for a couple of reasons. One of them is that I was already doing No XP, which is my little micro series about a group of JRPG heroes that finished their big epic quest and now they have to get back to normal life. And so I was already doing those, and the goal for those was to I had just gotten out of development at Nickelodeon for Planet Panic, and it was a huge bummer that they passed on it. And so I licked my wounds. I, sat under a waterfall. I did all those things that I didn't do that literally, but I did all those. I did all those things. Traveled to the highest mountaintop. Did some soul searching, and ultimately I realized that like what I want to do is I just want to make things, and I want to lead a team. And I was like, I am gonna just start. I'm gonna just start doing these shorts. I kind of worked backwards from the limitation of how can I pull this off? How can I make an episode every week myself? And that was the limitation. And so everything about No XP is designed with that in mind. It's like the limitation. And I encourage everybody to start all their projects the same way, because otherwise you get into La La Land, and then you're just ambition is the fastest way to kill any potential project. Overambition.
I've discussed this with I think Brian Smith was one of my previous guests I discussed this stuff with, and I have my own personal projects. And it's like, they're years old things. But I'm trying to kick myself in the ass this year where it's like, okay, I'm not, one way or another, this shit is getting done. But of course, you're the guest. So feel free to continue.
Yeah. Well, I think scoping down is always the healthiest thing you can do. And so like that was my my goal, was like, how can I do this consistently? And so I did that for a little while. I did 5 of those episodes, but I got my last job like while I started doing that, and so quickly my free time ran out, and I was like, oh, I actually can't do these every week. But I was also doing, originally they were like a minute each, and I was like, what's a minute of like essentially stick figures? It's a lot. And so I finished those first 5, and then I had to take a break because I got busy with work and life and other things. But I was like, I'm not going to quit on this. Like I am going to finish at least this first season, and I have to figure out how to do that. And so I was getting back into it already while I was still at my last job. Because I had a job, I was able to hire some people. They were helping me out. I started bringing on help to animate it. And then Sean came in, started helping me write and oversee the production. And so it built up slowly. And that's always been the thing, is it's like, I want to do this slowly. I want to find the right people, the right pace, everything. And but by the time I was going to do a Kickstarter to fund the first season, that was on my plan for the year. But then by the time that layoff happened, I was like, I could either wallow in grief, or I can just jump headfirst into this. And that was a big help, because basically I just within the week, basically I was like, all right, well, I got to design a logo. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I started. And then within a few weeks, we already had people reaching out for help with animation. And a lot of that is because I've just done a lot of stuff. And I think it was interesting because like just announcing that it exists was enough for people to take notice. And I was like, I should have done this sooner. I should have done this while I still had a job, because then it wouldn't have been as stressful. But yeah, it started pretty fast. And then since last like July, August-ish, my first plan of attack was obviously to figure out all the business side of things. But then I did this Kickstarter. We raised $20K, and that's been our budget so far. And yeah, we're set to go. We're hoping to finish this first season, I think, around October. We have all the scripts written. We've got a ton of boards already done in advance. Really great team. And as soon as I started the studio, like, and we were starting to get client work, I was able to just take the folks that were already working on NoXP and put them on client projects. And because I already trusted them, I knew they were good. It started growing. And so, I think it's been like 7 months or something. And it's going really well, and we'll see where it goes. It's stressful and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I very much have stepped into a, producer role where like, I don't really do, other than NoXP, I don't really do any of the hands-on work, but having people, sourcing talent and working with clients and like facilitating all of that has become my job, and I enjoy it. So far so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm definitely happy to hear that. It's definitely surreal. Well, obviously, I don't mean to sound like someone who's nerding out, but as someone who was like, I want to say like the original Creative Block podcast like started in 2019, 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and just to like go from that, go now. Well, both of us have made pretty big leaps. So I definitely did not think I could just like throw myself like into being on a show like this. So no, that's already good. But you've already had a pretty big history of you've been a big proponent of just making things and putting things out there. And I think that's how you have also just developed like the positive reputation or whatever. And, it's obviously I greatly respect that. But I guess like one question I have is just, especially because now the nature of social media and like marketing oneself online is basically changing every week. I don't know if you had like any advice or feedback or like what things people could do now in order to like get a leg up.
I mean, we're in a real rough spot as far as animation itself.
It's
probably the worst it's ever been. But like if people don't know, like basically everyone I know is unemployed or about to be, rolling off of shows. And so like, it's hard to be living through it, but I'm more optimistic than I think some of my peers, because I think that these things happen, and usually when they happen, the people who manage to get through it and keep working and keep their heads above water end up like becoming not just stronger, but they end up becoming a lot more influential, and you're the survivors. And so like,
and those are the people that can inspire actual change, right?
Yes. So like when things are at their worst is when people want to do the most, is when people get active. And within at least the sphere of animation, I'm seeing that happen. And what I'm trying to do with Jellybox is become the go-to studio for indie animation production. So if somebody, basically, if somebody is already doing well. Like we're working with Mike Salcido's Alphabet Lore, and like Alphabet Lore is already doing really well. And
nice.
So Mike reached out to us for help with his pipeline, because he needs to get these shorts out faster, and we have the team to execute that. So that's a perfect example. We have some other people working with that we haven't announced yet, and that's what I want us to be. Personally, I have the dual expertise of having worked in web animation for close to 20 years, but then also in TV. And so I know all these pitfalls. I know how to manage people and productions. And so that's become it's kind of become my way to get through all of this, is look towards the future and figure out what the next thing is going to be, what the next wave of new talent is going to be. And historically, like, there has been these times in movies and music and other mediums where things got really stale. Things got really, really corporate, capitalist, like it's happened time and again. You look at movies in the 50s, that there was a really bad trend of really phoned in like romantic dramas and stuff, and other, it was just slop for a little while. But From that came a huge auteur movement in the 60s, and that's how we get The Godfather, we get, the Scorseses, the Coppolas, like these directors who were young and hungry and just making the stuff they wanted to make, and they weren't making money on it necessarily. But once the studios caught wind of this movement, and then the ticket sales showed that the people were hungry for something fresh and with depth and complexity, then it caused this huge wave that lasted through the 70s, and it wasn't until the 80s that it got corporate again, and then we got back. It's the same thing with music, even. The music they had a huge upswing in the 60s. All the rock and all the music that was coming through that era, and almost simultaneously, there's a constant cultural swing, a pendulum happening back and forth. And then the 70s got a little more corporate. That's where people got mad at disco and all these things that seemed calculated,
Right.
And then by the 80s, they figured out, we can just make action movies and make a lot of money. We can make hair metal and whatever other stuff became easy. MTV got really good at marketing to the youth. And then the 90s came, and then we have Nirvana, and then we have another surge of filmmakers that are doing weird stuff, that Tarantino and so on. And so it comes in these waves, and we're at that end of this last wave, and it's kind of coinciding with the death of, not the death of streaming, I shouldn't say the death of, but I think the war is won. Netflix won the war, and we're all kind of just suffering the fallout from that war. But it's just a lot of things came together all at once. But my point is that I think like we're seeing the sort of corporatization of media, a lot of different media, and
yes,
all I can do is look towards the future, and for me the future is in indie web animation, because it's still the rawest form of expression, and it's the quickest way to see what's working with audiences, and when people just try a thing and it works, that's awesome. And so I've been putting in work to figure out how to help those people and bridge the gap between all these big studios who are kind of ignoring it. Like they don't get it. They don't understand the internet.
Yeah.
And so I'm working with, I'm having a lot of meetings with people and trying to bridge that gap, but we'll see. It is uncharted waters, and like it takes a lot of confidence to try to sell studios on what's going on online. Thankfully there's been these big hits like Digital Circus and Has Been Hotel. There's been these.
Yeah, of course.
There's like these things that you can point to and say like, this is what you're missing out on by not acknowledging this market.
Yeah, and I think like Has Been itself, being backed by Amazon, right?
Yeah,
it's just like a huge thing, honestly. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Greatly respect it.
Yeah,
and of course, pardon the admittedly weeby metaphor, but when you talk about, at least from what I'm getting, just wanting Jelly Box just to be like a hub of passionate people and just like honing in on the things that people love in order to make like new things to put them out there. I'm getting Gynax vibes, to be honest.
You're getting what vibes?
Gynax,
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean Gynax, and I think even the post Gynax, Trigger, like even that kind of was the second wave of that. Like it's these studios get too big, and then their best talent leaves, and I had a friend that I was working with in my last job who knows knows everybody in the Bay Area. I don't think you listen to this, but Truman, shout out. Truman knows everybody, basically everybody in the Bay Area gaming sphere, and there was a lot of layoffs in gaming in the last year, and he and I were part of it. But he said something.
Oh man.
Yeah, and so he said something about like. In 3 years, we're going to see a lot of really awesome original stuff. And he's a very positive guy, and I think he tries to look on the bright side. But I agree with him. I think that you can focus on the negative now, but I think if, everyone's going to get through this, I hope, And you're going to get a lot of good stuff out of it. Like, we're going to get a lot of good art out of it. And so, yeah, I think that I hope people are out there focusing on what's in front of them and doing their best to, like, keep adding to the, you know, the creative soup while they have the time, frankly. Like, that's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. You know, it's definitely surreal because coming from someone of my age and perspective, I've waxed, you know, a lot of this like foreign philosophy that I've had as a kid, just, you know, lurking through blogs and just being like, wow, maybe one day I can, you know, just be on a team like this, even have my own show. And then now I feel like not only just me, but I guess like people who were my age back then, you know, it's a lot to swallow at once, where it's, you know, just seeing the reality of things. But I think, and that's why I greatly respect, you know, the current wave of not just like indie animation, but, you know, just like, you know, web comics and webtoons, and just finding some way to just like put your own idea out there, just not being shackled to, I guess, like studio expectations.
Yeah.
Not gonna say yeah. Like, obviously, you know, if someone does make to a studio, that's big. I'm gonna applaud that.
Totally.
You know, that's great. But, you know, being able to do something without waiting for the permission.
That's exactly it. It's not the end all. And that's exactly the wording that I always use, is the waiting for permission. Cause I think, you know, I fell into that too. Like I spent a good chunk of my life, my career, like seeing that as the finish line, right? Like,
yeah.
And I was doing all the steps that I thought I needed to do in order to achieve that, where I did the Planet Panic webcomic. You know, I busted my ass on that for a year, and then that got the attention of Phil Rinda, who was head of development at Nick at the time, and he invited me to pitch it, and I pitched it a few times before it actually got greenlit as a short, and twice in the span of a month.
Oh, wow.
Like I pitched it in the beginning of their submissions period, got some notes, and then came back and pitched it again, just to drive it's like that kick that Conti does in episode 2 of Fully Coolly. Yeah. Like, I was like, fuck this. Like, I really wanted to like slam it down, and whether or not that actually helped.
I was honestly waiting like how long we were gonna go.
I can't go. I can't. It's what are we at? Like 20 minutes?
Yeah, 22 minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I held out. I've been sitting here like gripping the table, like clawing at it. And so yeah, I think I did all those steps. You know, I did the short. The short did really well. I pushed for it to get into development, and ultimately it's just me and a lot of other very talented peers of mine that were in development at the time just ran into an invisible wall that we didn't know was there, where it was just, oh, sorry, nothing original is being greenlit. And the few that squeaked by ended up coming out to zero fanfare, zero marketing, and the show's just kind of dissolved. So it's like, I don't even know what's worse, because I would have been just as heartbroken if the show got made and then like nobody really noticed it.
Yeah.
And then it was just stuck and owned by this major studio, and they do nothing with it. They probably take it down, you know, like that's where things are at. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I sympathize for those people too, but yeah, there's a lot of, I need permission to make this, and I've made a career out of just kind of doing things, and I think NoXP was an exercise in getting away from that, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to get away from it. But yeah, I think there's, you know, I would see people who would talk about wanting to be showrunners that it always was a little frustrating to me, because for a lot of people, they don't understand just how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And so they get these, it feels like a fun thing to do. I still see that. I still see it from younger artists where they're like, I want to have a show. And I'm like, man, you really don't. Because if you're like upset at somebody sending you a bad tweet once, imagine that all the time from strangers, but then also everyone on your crew kind of hates you. Like, you're the boss now. and it's really hard. You have to have a lot of people management experience to be a good leader and be able to not just make the show good, but make sure people are happy to work on your show.
Right.
Make sure that the deadlines are reasonable, that the schedules are reasonable, that the network is happy with what you're doing. It takes every ounce of your being to be a successful showrunner. And a lot of people I don't think they have it in them. I don't see it in them for one reason or another. And we've seen it happen where people get into those positions before they're ready and it crushes them. And I don't want people to see that as the end goal. I think the end goal should be finishing things that you can make within your limitations, and you'll be happier in the long run. But I can't convince everyone to not make pilots. But I wish people would stop making pilots. I think it's that programming from the old way of doing things when networks would throw money at creators for a concept. They don't do that anymore. And when you're trying to self-fund a pilot, you might pull it off. Like I'm helping some people out with their pilots and trying to do what I can. But even an 11-minute pilot, like, to pay people even remotely well, just within reason, like that's like $100,000 expense, something like that. At least, by the way, like that's it, like at least for 11 minutes. And the stuff comes out of left field. You never know what, like you have to pay for. You end up doing a lot of the work yourself anyway, but it's really expensive, and most Kickstarters are not going to be able to do that unless you're like some board game. For some reason, those do really well, but I don't know why. But animation Kickstarters generally don't do that well, and so instead, I wish people would focus on shorter form, sustainable series. Whether it's on YouTube or if it can stand alone, it can then just do little shorts on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But yeah, the pilot thing needs to die. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable.
I got a couple of thoughts all at once about that. So let me see if I can rapid fire. So first off, this isn't like your opinion on pilots. It's not the first time I'm hearing about this. Friend and previous person I interviewed on this, Alfredo Morales, or Cheeseman Fredo. I remember one of the last conversations I had with him on Twitter, because I obviously left that site, was that people who are already like in like the industry, like I'm paraphrasing, but it's like people who are already in have more of a shot because that they already are showing that they are willing to work with others. But I think he also agreed that the era of just pitching to a network is basically washed. What else? In terms of webcomics, right, because you were mentioning social media. The general idea, general compliment I should say, is that I really like the fact that you're able to market No XP like within the confines of current like social media, like video distribution, for lack of better words, but it doesn't feel constrained by that. And I think that's a good thing. So big ups to you and the team for that.
Thank you.
But another thing that I think is underrated, there's this one artist I normally follow on TikTok. I think he is let me Google him real quick, because I know the little webcomic is called Into the Fog. And I've been keeping up with it. That's actually a more generic name. Okay, look, but I've actually been really engaging with the comic, not only because, I don't know how much longer we're gonna have TikTok, but for webcomics, I personally feel like it's kind of underrated because of the fact that you were able to just like, I think it was the first thing you were able to just like post individual images instead of having to cram to a video. And then also having music, and then, people who would find, people who are into that music would be able to like find a comic because, the sound is its own tag, and, it's just an easy way to just like get your little playlist out there instead of just having like a huge Spotify playlist. I'm rambling, honestly. But I've been really into that because, it's weird, but that comic just works. It just has like a really simple art style, the engaging characters and everything, and it's something I respect. And I think like having characters that hook you, it's like, no matter, again, I'm just rambling, but I think something that I admire, especially these days, is being able to have a hook, have characters that you're willing to keep up with across not only like an unproven distribution method, but across other, sites, because again, TikTok will probably implode.
TikTok's probably going to implode. I think, but that was going to happen as soon as it became popular. Like, I don't know, man. You spend enough time on the internet, and like none of these things feel solid. Like I was stoked on MySpace when I was in high school, and it felt like, this is it, man. We're gonna have this forever. And that was like 3 years, maybe, if that. And then Facebook came, and it definitely had a longer tenure. But it's like everyone's like, I was like, this is it, man. We're gonna be having Facebooks for the rest of our lives. Cut to like 6 years later, and mine is like a graveyard. Like it's all like boomers and weirdo classmates I had in high school. That's and that post like bad takes, and I'm just like, oh, all right. And so that's gone. And then Twitter, man, Twitter's not going anywhere. I don't know. I think we got like a couple years of Twitter, maybe. And Tumblr, it's like it just keeps happening. And so TikTok popped off.
I'm so gutted about Tumblr, to be honest.
Tumblr is a bummer. They're all bummers, because at some point they were all good. And TikTok popped off around COVID because everyone was at home, and they definitely tapped into the at home, dance challenges, blah blah blah. Like it all kind of it came at the right time. They kind of ate Vine and like Instagram, all these things, and so they did well. But it was always gonna collapse. Like the way, I don't know. I hate TikTok. So it's like, I think that the way that it's structured just feels so manic and desperate. It feels really desperate. And it was always going to collapse, because anything that desperate for your attention is going to burn people out so fast. And so like,
it's definitely been like an experience for me. And I've talked about this previously as well. I feel like a social media hermit because I didn't get a smartphone until after Vine had already died.
Oh, wow.
So the whole initial generation of like short form, like internet videos, that was just like caveman talk to me. So me just discovering TikTok, it was just a whole world that I was just not used to. And to be fair, there has been a lot of creative stuff, art-wise or not.
Yeah.
But I'm just so out of my element. Like, to give you an idea, one of my main things I'm also trying to get back into, video essays, info dumps, also 5-year long research projects that I'm going to revive. But it's like trying to do a whole separate branch of extra stuff just to promote the main stuff on a completely different website. It's just draining, and take live streaming on top of that. And it's like, it's surreal. Like, there are a lot of pillars. Personally, I feel like the whole TikTok shop did not help the site at all. If you know. That's another pillar that ended up like causing its downfall, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a lot good, and I don't know how like another platform could and I don't know, because even like smaller sites that try to like rebuild like from another juggernaut website's ashes, they're not immune to their own issues or criticisms or whatever. And honestly, it's another reason why I'm trying to force myself to learn HTML to like build a website at this point.
I do think I think yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next. No one does, and what the next sort of thing will be. But I have been seeing a shift back towards smaller communities. I think Discord was kind of the first foray into that, and like I don't know if that'll be the one that sticks, but I think we've seen that people are much more comfortable being in small communities rather than being exposed to every idiot on the planet all the time. And
absolutely,
it's not good for you. It's like, it's just not healthy to be exposed to every moron and their opinion. So I think that'll be a thing. I've seen some research, and I've seen some like articles about it, and like human beings are tribal by nature, and we seek out like closed communities. We're not meant to be interacting with everybody, and so it's overwhelming. It's hard for us to. That's why there's so much anxiety, because we're exposed to so much.
Yeah, I think like I remember reading like an article long ago that like the human brain can only handle so many relationships at like a single time.
Yes, yeah. Used to be you didn't have to have. Used to be you would be friends with somebody and then you'd lose touch, and then that was it. And, And now there's this pressure to like always stay in touch with people, and it's like I don't know. I don't have the patience for that. So yeah, I think TikTok will, whatever happens in Congress, whatever that they were doing this 3 years ago and nothing came of it. So I'll be surprised if they actually ban TikTok. But if they do, something else will come along. I don't know where I land on that, because I don't like the idea of censoring an app for any reason. But I also think it's causing serious brain rot to like multiple generations at this point, and so I don't know why everyone is all of a sudden upset about TikTok going away. Like, I think it should go away. I don't think it's contributing anything good to society.
I'll definitely give it to you. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff, there's a lot of good resources, and I only dusted off the app I think like a year or two ago, just so I add this like eternal like DM chain where just me and one of my friends, Incog M, shout out by the way if you're listening, we just send each other just like funny memes.
Oh yeah,
and we're still doing that.
No, it's fun. Like my wife and I do that all the time. Like we there's tons of funny stuff, cute animal videos, whatever. But like that's not new.
The impact on attention span is real. Oh my god, experience.
Yeah,
like.
But none of that's new. Like Instagram was doing funny vids before that, still doing it. Facebook was that. Before that, it was, again, MySpace. Before that, it was just stupidvideos.com. Like it was, people are always going to exchange that kind of, it's that sort of memetic content. Doesn't even mean like memes, like how we've come to understand it, but like people are always going to exchange those kinds of things. But it'll be another version of it. It'll be another version, and hopefully a more sustainable one. But I do want to say, tying it back to animation and Jellybox and stuff, is like, I think that it's not good to. There's different targets to hit, and it kind of depends on what somebody wants to accomplish, because different platforms have different expectations. And this is stuff that I'm learning as I go. Some people might know this, some people might not. But like, it's good to know. Same as good, it's good to know what studio you're pitching to and what kind of shows they make, what kind of, what their demographics are. It's the same thing with social media apps. Instagram loves self-contained character-based stuff. So any kind of funny, silly little critter that does relatable things is going to do well on Instagram. Animation in general does not do well on TikTok, but there are some standout hits. and it's similar. It's similar to Instagram. Twitter is not worth pursuing at all anymore.
Yeah.
As a audience.
Yeah, I think that's my own thing, honestly. Not to interrupt.
No, interrupt.
But I think, yeah, just to like be realistic about social media, it's like I definitely lament the loss of Twitter as a platform for
me
artists.
too.
But I remember when it was still actually legally called Twitter, it wasn't always a great place for artists anyway.
Yeah.
Art theft was rampant. Art theft just became a meme in of itself, and this is like pre-AI. And just like rules, random suspensions, harassment. But I will say it was great for networking.
Yes.
And I feel like that's a big thing that's lost now.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there. I'm still managing to probably like even today. Like I'm still making connections. I'm still DMing people, and I don't know if it's gonna fully collapse. I feel like it's more likely that Elon will sell it at a loss. I hope it's a massive loss. But
I think they did the same to Tumblr back in the day.
Yes, exactly. I hope he has to sell it at a massive loss and eat shit, and then somebody will buy it, and it'll never be the same. But I don't use it so much personally. I don't use it so much that I've felt that big of a change. Like it's definitely worse than it used to be. But it was always bad. And I think the more followers you have, the more you realize that it's always been bad. Because I've known, I have friends that have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're like, it's like I've always been getting yelled at by strangers. So like now they just have blue check marks.
Yeah, another Tuesday.
Yeah, it's another Tuesday. And so, but anyway, yeah, I think that the important thing is just to make things and upload them wherever you can. Oh, and then YouTube is I think YouTube, as far as animation, is better geared towards longer form stuff. They're figuring out their shorts, but it's still not great. And I think that's where you go if you want to do longer form. And when I say longer form, I mean like a minute plus. Like just shorts that are have a little bit more to chew on. I think that's the place to go. But yeah, people just need to make stuff. People just need to not worry about audiences. And I know I'm like almost contradicting myself, but I think it's good to keep.
No, it's warranted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to keep those things in mind, and it's good to be smart about it. But I've tried not to give a shit, because if I start bogging myself down with algorithms and analytics, I will not want to do this anymore. Like I don't think that, and then that leads to nothing. Like that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, I agree, speaking from experience. As of this week, I'm trying to just like push myself into just making things again. I've talked about this previously, but it's a weird miasma of like having the vision and being able to identify where like my art can improve, but like the actually executing that, and regardless of social media marketing, actually executing that is, I think, the biggest hurdle that I have personally into like doing more. But I have been like writing some stuff. I've been like trying to like sketch out some characters, and from the people who I have talked to about an original concept that I've had, I'm still confused about the medium, but people are interested.
Yeah.
So, and that's great.
Yeah, that is great.
And it's just, and again, like I keep, I hate that I end up like repeatedly asking guests like this, but it does help with the perspective. But it's just like from someone who has been focused on more like academic or research based stuff for most of my life, and then just having to relearn how to be creative, how to tell stories. It's really hard, and it's weird to put into words. I don't actually know if others have this experience. Maybe it's because of me not coming from like a animation background, but it's difficult, but it's an ongoing thing that I'm clawing myself out of, I guess.
Yeah. It's easy to come up with barriers, you know. I think I've done it to myself a lot. And for me, honestly, like animation has always been a means to an end because I don't really like animating. It's hard. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to tell stories and I couldn't not do it. So I learned how to use Flash at the time and you know, started voice acting. Like I started doing all these things myself, and then NoXP is kind of me trying to get back to those roots. But I think that there's been plenty of examples of people always reference dinosaur comics, you know, Ryan North, where it was like this webcomic where it was the same, I think it was the same drawings every day. It was just like these pixel dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just writing, but it's the same drawings every day. And he's been doing it forever. And still, I just Googled it. It's still going. And it's, you know, still going, still making it. And there's other examples of that, like XKCD was just like stick figures. And I love webcomics. Like I think I used to be really big into webcomics, and I think the thing that got hard for me is that is the feed, you know, because it's hard to pay attention to webcomics when the update is lost amongst a bunch of other bullshit. And I actually miss when I would, in the morning, I would like wake up and I would just read through all my bookmarks, like all my webcomics, to see what had updated. And it was great. And now that's harder to do, but I will take the blame for that. Like I could do it. I think I like fell off. And but people are still out there. They're still making stuff. And NoXP in a way is a webcomic. Like I think of it as that. But I've talked about doing a website for it because of what we've been talking about and what you even described. You know, it's like having that hub and not worrying about what platform it's on, you know, how to favor the algorithm, all these things. And we have a Discord, we have a fan base, we have people who are excited when they come out. So it's like more about funneling people towards these spaces where it's like, this is where the community is. This is where, you know, the fandom is.
Right.
And a website can accomplish that. But yeah, I think that it's just finding the easiest route to making a thing. That's always the goal, is not overthinking it.
Mm-hmm. Like, and this will be my final question before quick mention of Q-Bomb, and then we can go into our viewer question. So just from me to you directly, like if someone were just trying to, well, someone being me, fuck it.
Yeah, sure.
Just trying to get like a story off the ground, just like making something like a webcomic. You have experience with webcomics. So just actually having like a step-by-step would help. So like what would be your ideal, you know, just like starting from like square one, like what process would you follow?
That's an interesting question. I think it's good to start the first installment. That seems obvious, but I think the more that you build that up in your head, it's like the first page. The first page of a sketchbook is always the scariest because it's blank.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think starting is always the best way to get over it. I kind of, what I do might be different from what is good for other people, you know, because I've been doing this a long time. So like, I have developed the discipline to actually commit to the projects that I set out to do, but it's really hard to get to that point. And I used to not be at that point. So it's starting a thing is always going to be the best bet. You know, when I used to do Hyperboy back in the day, this Flash series.
Yeah.
And I was just, I didn't know any better. So I just started. Like I I had a comic that I did of Hyperboy before it, and then I watched Fully Cooley, and I was like, I gotta make this animated thing.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, that's number 2 now. And so I just started it, and it looked like shit. The grass was swatch green, and it was just a green horizon and blue sky, but I didn't give a shit because I just didn't know any better, and I just wanted to, make a cartoon. And every project since then, it's just been, what's the quickest way to like make this thing finish? Like, what's the quickest way to have a finished thing, and then it feels real? So with Hyperboy, I was getting that first episode done, and it was short. I got that first episode done, if I remember, it was like a less than a month. And it was, it was like 3 minutes. Yeah. But I mean, I would just come home from school and work on it. And, cause it was fun.
To have that free time. Again.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I have it now, and so that's kind of where I'm at now, but like, that's where a lot of people have it. And so I want people to do more with that time, but, and then they got longer and longer and more complicated. And then it took me like a couple of years to do episode 5, but I was in college. Like it was a whole thing. And I'll have these moments, like anytime that I get antsy, I usually start something. And I was working full-time in San Francisco back in 2013, and I didn't have a lot going on. Like I didn't have many friends. My job was fairly easy, and because it was just good people, and the project wasn't too bad. And so I was like, I miss making things again. So I started doing a webcomic with my now wife called Galacticat. And I was writing, I knew I couldn't draw it, but she was looking for something to work on. So I was like, how about you draw it? I'll write it. So I was writing, she was drawing. We did that for like a couple years. Got to know each other, moved in, now we're married. And, but we finished it, we just started it. Like I gave her a script and she just drew it. And I was like, this is great. Let's keep going. And then we just kept going. And after that, it was Planet Panic. Like I kept trying to pitch it. It wasn't working because people didn't get it. They didn't see how it is supposed to feel. And And I was still at that same job. I was at the tail end of it, and I really didn't have much to do. But I also had no friends, and so like at that moment, And I think I cope.
You might as well have had free time.
You might as well, yeah. So I think I cope with those moments by creation. And so I was like, I'm just going to start making this comic. And I wanted it to be, I didn't want to do anything animated because I knew it was going to be a pain in the ass to do voice acting and sound effects and all these things. And I didn't want to do comics because I had done it and it was kind of boring for me. So I found a middleman. I did these animated looped pages, and that was a lot of fun. Like every page was like a puzzle that I had to solve. And a lot of reuse, a lot of clever little tricks, and I told myself that I would have to finish the first chapter. If it didn't move on from there, that's fine, but I had to finish the first chapter. And there was a moment in the middle, or kind of near the end, where I had lost that job. I was between jobs. I had moved to LA, kind of with no real serious prospects, and I was just trying to network and hustle. And I remember there was a moment where I was like, I have to finish that. Like I can't abandon that. So I squeezed through, I managed to finish the last, I don't even know, it was 6 pages or something, but I finished it. And I think the short might have even been, actually, I don't think so. I don't think the short had been greenlit yet, but I just I have to finish this. And then when I had pitched it that first time, I don't know if the people I pitched it to really got it, but one of them said that after your pitch, I went and read the comic, and then I understood what you're going for with this. And I was like, I'm glad I did it then. Because even, it really did exactly what it needed to do. It got the attention of people, and the people who I wanted to notice it, and me. And then it also was a great companion piece to the storyboard for the short that I ended up making. So it's if you're ever feeling down, do a 27-page animated comic, because it'll create opportunities for you. And And then I was doing that for a bit. I was juggling work and development, but then Q-Bomb kind of came around. Like I had done some music stuff before.
Perfect segue.
Perfect segue. I'm here for you, man. And I've done podcasts. I know how hard it is. And me and my buddy Rem, who I've known forever, we had done some music before, and I was working at Nick, and Nickelodeon was doing this like talent show thing called Nickapalooza that they hadn't done in a long time. And I was like, that'd be fun. And I had been playing music just like as a hobby.
Right.
Not writing anything, just kind of covers. And I was like, hey, what if we just like write we had like a 6-minute set, and it was like, what if we just write like 2 or 3 really simple songs? And I wrote one, he wrote one, we both did the third, and suddenly we had 3 songs in the span of like 6 months. But that felt achievable. That didn't feel unachievable because we split up the work. That's another thing too, is like work with people who you like just collaborate, like because people are out there and they want to help. And so we already knew we could work together well, and we just wrote these songs, busted them out, got a band together. That's what I'm good at, is like just cobbling together teams. So I was like, you're drumming now. You do this, you do that, and we've had mostly the same lineup. Like our drummer changed, our keyboard player changed, and we like rotated some other stuff around. But it's been at least 3 of the same people. And so after that, we had something now. We have 3 songs. We have a name,
right.
A band. We have a name. And it was like, well, what if we just keep writing? And then we just kept writing. And then suddenly it's like, I think we can make an album. And then it was more about like, all right, let's think of this as an album now. And then we started writing stuff to fit in as an album. It's like I had a kind of a vision of how I wanted it to flow. So, and suddenly then we had an album, and now we're doing it again, where it's like we're juggling doing these standalone singles that are going to start coming out this year, and then also the second album we're working on songs for that as well. And it's just little by little, it's like if I ever need the dopamine hit of just finishing a thing, then I will put aside the album and I'll focus on a single that I know will come out sooner. It'll still be probably months, but I'm like, I think I can finish the song in the next couple of months, and then we'll put our efforts towards that. And then when I'm feeling recharged again and I feel like I can, work towards a song from the album, we'll do that. And so it's listening to your body, listening to your mind, and knowing what you need in that moment, and like adjusting to it. But if I like anybody, I'm sure I'll have moments where I feel burnt out and I feel like there's like a barrier, and it's, you hit that, like, I don't want to sit down and do this right now. You probably shouldn't be doing that then. Like, yeah, it's like, it's this really basic advice, but I've started really, really following that religiously, where I'm lucky that I have a lot of things going on so I can kind of jump around more easily. But if I ever feel like I don't want to do something, I will not do that. And I will jump to a different thing that is exciting me right now, because getting things done and continuing that flow is more important than like, oh no, I didn't finish the thing that I wasn't excited about. So, but then, I jump over to that thing. Turns out I had just enough energy to finish it. Bam, now it's done. And now I feel good about myself again. And that's the only thing that's important, is like just feeling good about yourself at the end of the day.
And to segue into our viewer question from Art Tricks on Blue Sky, is there a particular project or job you enjoyed working on more than others?
Ooh, oh man, is it a cop out if I say they're all like my children? No, I wanna give a better answer. They're all different, I think that I really liked working on the Planet Panic short. It was such a like getting the gang together kind of heist thing, where I was like, I worked with a lot of people that had been on my wish list for so long and they almost all agreed to work on it and killed it. Like everybody, like Doug Harvey, goes by Lysol Jones, was character design. I've always loved his work. There was a guy who goes by Pac-23 who did all the background layout, and it was awesome. Like it was, yeah, and it was just like Studio Yada was the animation studio, and they were great, and that
nice.
That felt like giving back to the community a little bit, because I came from that Newgrounds world, and they were from it as well, and yeah, and then it came out and it did phenomenal, and I didn't expect it, because all I saw was the flaws. So I was like, I don't know, maybe people will like this. I don't know if it turned out how I imagined. And it was such a great response that I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like if you really like put a lot of effort into something, people do notice. And you can't, the harsh lesson that I had to learn, because I really love, I had a great time working on Q-Bomb's first album too, on Hyperpunk. And super proud of everything we did with that. It was a long journey, but I made an album. I don't know how, but we made an album. And it came out, and it didn't get a lot of fanfare. Like it didn't do great. It got its fans. We definitely have our fans. I think it's been kind of a slow burn, but I had hoped that it would have the same explosion that Planet Panic had, and you can't force that. You can't expect it. And that was a harsh lesson to learn. And so since then, I've pulled back on that. I got spoiled on the Planet Panic response, and so now I'm like, no, I can't expect everything I make to be, to go viral or whatever. So it's like I have to just make things, find the people that find those people that are gonna love it, and keep it consistent. Just keep it consistent. Keep making things, and generally that audience will carry over from one thing to another too. So like even when No XP wraps up, by then I'll probably have another thing, and a lot of those people, if they like what I do, they'll probably hop over to that.
Yeah, it's better to have like OGs, and well, obviously like any people appreciating you is obviously appreciated.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like when you have people that are willing to stick with you throughout like anything, where it's like, oh, that's a Gene Goldstein joint, so I'm gonna look at that. That's what people are aiming for. Not to say like people just fans, just like not labeling them, but it's like consistent appreciation. Liking you and your work for you and the unique vision that you bring. I think is the important thing. I think that's the goal for like anyone working in any creative field.
Yeah, for sure.
And honestly, again, as someone who is juggling so many tables, someone who has a lot of interest overlap, and I think we're only like a day apart in terms of birthday, which is hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 23rd.
Oh, yeah, 22nd, right on.
Nice. But yeah, just know that, your work over here is definitely appreciated. And, again, not to have a Midoriya moment, for lack of better expression, but Creative Block absolutely was instrumental in me getting to this point. So thank you for that as well. Thank
you, man. No, you've been a supporter of that podcast forever, and I saw it, and I always appreciate it. I'm like, there's KashCast. And it's great because those, people like you, they're always noticed by the people who are doing whatever it is, be it a podcast, or animation, whatever. It's like people that are vocal, people that are always commenting and whatever, even if those creators don't always respond, it is noticed. It's just,
and being nice helps.
Being nice helps a lot. Don't be a weirdo on the internet. Not every people need the reminder, I guess. I've, shout out to Laura Sparkles. Actually, I don't think she goes by Laura Sparkles anymore, but Laura Serrano Morales, who was a fan of Creative Block. She did a like a fan art of what she's like, this is me if I was on Creative Block, and like did it in the style of those thumbnails that I used to do.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's really good. Who is this? And, followed her, stayed in touch. And then she was the first animator that I had working on No XP, just because I like needed somebody who could match my style. And I could see that she did. And so I brought her on, and now she is like one of the core group of Jellybox. Like she's working on a bunch of stuff.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And I think it's helped her grow, it's helped her expose her to a lot more people and give her a lot more work and projects. And so, yeah, I think, and I do that in my own way too, like I'm constantly trying to meet with people who are, legends, like getting lunches with showrunners, whoever. For me, Creative Block was a really great exercise in realizing that like I'm on the same level as all these people. There's like a sort of pedestal thing that happens, where I think of,
oh, definitely.
Yeah, I think of all these people as like, oh my God, like they're so unapproachable and whatever. And then you talk to them for an hour and a half and you're like, oh man, everyone is just kind of anxious and like, and like stressed out. Like everyone's in the same boat. And that helped a lot. And I think I kind of got what I needed from it in that regard. I was like, okay, like I've talked to Jason DeMarco, legend that he is. I've talked to Alex Hirsch.
If I could get him.
Yeah.
I think that's why we just like click, because so many of the people that I find cool, like you've already got, and it's like
they're down to chat, Now honestly, now is the time, because a lot of people don't have much going on, so they're happy to just commiserate.
Right.
And that was the same thing then, as V and I, like, we were both not feeling great. This was like 6 months into lockdown or something. And she had the idea to do a podcast. I had the idea to do a podcast a while ago before that. But I couldn't do it myself. Again, having a good, partner is huge. And so together we like pooled our resources. I handled all of the production for a while. I handled all of the visual assets, and V would do like outreach and organizational stuff. And we got V's sister Clem to do the editing, which is super important. I'm sure like,
yeah.
Not having to worry about that was huge. And once we started doing them, we just started with like friends, just to again make it easy. And then we started getting in more and more names. And once we had a reputation for, once we had a good reputation, people could see like, oh, they had all these other people. Like, yeah, sure, I'll do the show. And so yeah, I think I just kind of got what I needed out of it, and I got busier, and suddenly it was just like too much for me to handle, and so I stepped back. And
completely understand. Like I'm trying to get back into podcasting myself, but it is absolutely only within my own capabilities. Honestly. Yeah,
it's hard. People don't know how much work even a podcast is. Like it is a lot of work. So yeah, I feel for you, man. You're doing great.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for everything. And I think we finally wrapped up everything. Just to do a gradual sign off, in case anyone is listening and wants to support me on Patreon, is patreon.com/A2Adam. $2 or $5, you get early access to episodes. You might be able to get any updates on sketches or any other creative projects I do, and you might be able to actually know about guests early in advance and ask them questions in advance. I'm also potentially trying to think of a bonus show with Bash-4, so you might be able to know that once you donate. But of course, if you can't afford it, that's whatever. Any support is appreciated. And for Gene, where can people find you across the interwebs?
I am at Gene Goldstein, one word, on every social media. But
gotta have that synergy.
Yeah, but we also I'm also President Bean, as I say, of Jellybox, which is at Jellybox_studio on all the socials. I think it's all the same. And I'm also the frontman of Q-Bomb, which is at Q-Bomb Band, all over the place. I think that the next thing that hopefully Q-Bomb's doing is releasing an EP, a little 3-song EP. So keep an eye out for that. No XP is uploading every week. We got other projects coming down the pipe. Keep an eye out. Thanks for being a fan. Thanks for having me, Adam. Always fun.
No problem. Thank you for closing this little anime arc of mine. I really, really appreciate
Hell yeah.
it.
Love that.
All right. So finally, just going to sign off. Thanks again for listening, supporting the show. For all you listeners out there, I'm Adam. Oh, Gene.
Oh, and I'm Gene.
And we will both catch you next time. Remember to stay safe, take care, wear a mask, and remember, love and peace always.
Love
Adios,
and
everyone.
peace. Love
Yes.
and peace.
Yes.